Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. Today I'm going to circle around and pick up a story a number of you wanted me to cover last week, and that is that the Queen of the Tearling has been set up at Warner Brothers with Emma Watson in the lead. And they had a very tempting description. They said it's a Game of Thrones kind of adventure film about with a teenage heroine, and it's going to be played by Emma Watson. And I really like Emma Watson. I think she's really awesome. But when you delve a little further into what's going on here, I wouldn't hold my breath for this project to come to fruition and to some degree to be successful. Why? Okay, here are my concerns. First off, Emma Watson is tied to a lot of stuff. She's still tied to that Guillermo del Toro Beauty and the Beast. So just because a deal is signed doesn't mean it's being fast-tracked. Second of all, David Heyman is going to produce it, and he's producing also for Warner Brothers, and he produced the Harry Potter franchise, which is how Emma Watson obviously got the inside track, and how they had the inside track on arguably one of the hottest up-and-coming talents in Hollywood, largely thanks to the smart choices she's been making post-Potter. But at the same time, you'll remember that I reported that Heyman is also developing a Fables franchise for Warner Brothers. And this looks like a very heavy slate. Now, maybe he can multitask a la Jerry Bruckheimer and get all this stuff off the ground. But remember, when he made Harry Potter, he was really only focusing on Harry Potter. And he's currently trying to get Paddington Bear off the ground. I think they're about to cast that. So I think that David Heyman has a lot of irons in the fire, but we'll see which one he pulls out first. And then the other thing is that they say Game of Thrones, but when I read the description, it's not a medieval kind of movie. This isn't going to be like her answer to Kristen Stewart's Snow White and the Huntsman for Emma Watson. They said it takes place in the future, and it's an apocalyptic future that seems to have some elements of Alice in Wonderland mixed in there. And so you're really actually getting more of an I Am Legend, Book of Eli kind of film. Now, I Am Legend was very successful, despite a lot of people disliking it when they left the theater. But they all paid to go and see it, so haha. But I think apocalyptic films, post-apocalyptic movies, are very hard to pull off and to sell to audiences. So we'll see what they develop. But I wouldn't totally hold out hope on this. But I think that Game of Thrones is a little bit misleading for a hook. And but I do like Emma Watson a lot, and I hope she does make, as I said, she makes smart choices, so there must be something about this project that is compelling and sets it apart from, I'm sure, the other similar but mindless big blockbuster roles she's being offered. Okay, so that's the first story of the day. The second story is pretty interesting. There's a director that I underlined for you, J.A. Bayona, when The Impossible came out around the holiday season. His film, Naomi Watts got nominated for an Oscar and for a Golden Globe, but the film overall was really fantastic. And I said, someone's going to snap this guy up. He's such a talented director. He directed The Orphanage, the Spanish language film, horror film, which I really highly recommend to you, that you go and stream or rent if you can. But someone did pick him up, and it was television. We're losing directors to TV, but obviously they can do both. And he's teaming up. He's been tapped by none other than Sam Mendes, which is fantastic. Sam Mendes is reteaming with his Skyfall writer John Logan to bring a Victorian Gothic horror show to Showtime called Penny Dreadful. And I have to say, I don't know how this is going to do, because some of the BBC. For instance, BBC's Copper hasn't really caught on here, and I mean, this is a tough time period to sell to audiences. From Hell, but From Hell, that movie with Johnny Depp based on the Alan Moore, that wasn't particularly. It was, from what I read the novel afterwards, it wasn't a particularly strong adaptation. But anyway, I feel like on Showtime, and with this kind of talent attached, Sam Mendes, John Logan, and J.A. Bayona, I guess they're going to maybe take turns directing or something like that, or J.A. Bayona will maybe take over Mendes for Mendes after the pilot. It would be really awesome if we could get something that is on the level of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. And I'm not talking about that horrible movie, but if you haven't read it, and you have to be an adult to read this, okay? But if you haven't read Alan Moore's particularly fantastic series, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, it kind of goes off the rails toward the end, but at least pick up the first two graphic novels. Really amazing, stellar work. So, I mean, and we all know the Victorian era can get pretty naughty. So if Showtime can kind of not go too far, but kind of have a great mix of that, I think they could have a big hit on their hands. I even like the title, Penny Dreadful. And I think J.A. Bayona and Sam Mendes are obviously fantastic talents. I'm a little disappointed that J.A. Bayona hasn't been picked to do a movie for one of the big studios. I said a comic book movie this talent, you got to snap it up. But I think he's really extraordinarily a talented director and a real win for Showtime. If Showtime could get prestigious show. I mean, they have a lot of prestigious shows right now, but I'm talking about one that has like a really lavish set production and budget, kind of like HBO does. You know, with Deadwood and Boardwalk Empire, and Game of Thrones, obviously, where they create these worlds. So if Showtime can get in on that, that's going to be really exciting for them. So I'm very interested in seeing how this develops, and I would watch it. The third story is like a fun side note. Of course, how could a day go by without some comic book movie news? And this is a fun story. You know how all the set pictures that have been leaking for Captain America because they're shooting in Cleveland? The Captain America producers and Marvel Studios are getting very nervous to the extent of the photographs that are being leaked. So they actually have a PA standing on the set with a giant poster that says, "No pictures, please," kind of trying to appeal to your sense of morality, which I think is ridiculous. If these movies don't want spoilers, they should shoot on a closed set. I mean, movie studios have huge backlots for this reason, exactly. And I think you're only going to encourage people to take more pictures. And also, this is a movie that's going to make hundreds of millions of dollars and make hundreds of millions of dollars for the people involved. And the photographs off of said film are worth a lot of money. So I think it's a little bit interesting that they would be like, hey, we're going to make a lot of money off of this, but don't you make any money off of this, even though we're out in the open and you have every right to stand here and take the photo. So, I mean, but this is a little bit of a problem for movies. I can see where they're coming from. I mean, the Talia twist in The Dark Knight Rises was infamously spoiled by a photograph being taken on a set, when everyone was like, she's dressed a lot like Ra's al Ghul. So, but it's the movie studio's responsibility to have this kind of secrecy, and they need to either shoot at night or really close down the streets or shoot on a movie set. So, but although I will say, I would like to add, these pictures are making me a lot more excited for the movie. So I think that Marvel shouldn't be against them getting out there. I really love the kind of 70s political thriller vibe that they kind of have to them. I really like Black Widow, so I like seeing more of her. I think Winter Soldier looks fantastic. And they took a sequel that I didn't have high hopes for because I felt that the first film was basically two very long montages and made me really excited for it. I can't wait. So, just let the dice roll, Marvel. I think that this isn't a disaster. So speaking of, allegiances with movies and, directors like J.A. Bayona saying someone should snap him up for the Marvel or DC movies. Yesterday, one of you asked me, are Marvel and DC aware of the Marvel-DC rivalry, or is this just something that the fans have made up? I can't speak to the film level, but I doubt you would see an actor appear in both worlds. So I can't speak to how the film studios feel, the film divisions, although I would imagine it is probably an extension of the comic book companies, where I actually know a number of people at both Marvel and DC. I actually had coffee with someone from DC like about a week ago. And I'll tell you that they are very aware of this rivalry. It is a real thing. Now, this is not to say they're not civil to each other when they see each other at comic book conventions. And you might even find some people who are from different teams, secretly or quietly at least, not making a big deal about it, sharing a drink at a bar at a convention or something like that, or even in the city. But the main executives take it very seriously. And they take pot shots at each other during interviews, both on and off camera. And you'll notice that if you are a freelancer, even if you have an exclusive, obviously you only work for one. But for the most part, you got to pick a team. You cannot work for Marvel and DC at the same time. And when you work for the other one, you just can't go. They will not consider you at the other publisher. And that's why you will probably never see another Marvel and DC team up ever again. I don't know. I think that they're just in such a heated, locked competition that I can understand the kind of rivalry because their books do compete so heavily. And it's like they're competing for the same readers, so obviously it's a sore point. But I would maybe think that considering some of as I talked about in Movie Math yesterday, there's just such hate and anger that's being even made even bigger by the movies at this point, that perhaps maybe they should have like a little peace summit between Marvel and DC to kind of be like, what, you can like both, guys. Both of us have our wins and both of us have our losses. Let's just enjoy comic books and comic book-based properties and be able to talk about them openly without fear of harassment. So write your thoughts down below. And also, you know what? It's probably against my better judgment, but I just have to address it. A number of people yesterday said, well, Grace, how can you say that it's split evenly on a Man of Steel, liking and disliking? Everyone I personally know loves it, and what about that 82% audience approval over on Rotten Tomatoes? Now, I would say to you, Rotten Tomatoes, the critic rating, takes into account and goes and finds all the major critics, and the second-tier critics, and sometimes even the third-tier critics. That's why they have a top critic section. And they actively go and get everybody. The website does. And that's why I think that the critical rating, the Rotten Tomatoes score, is trusted by a lot of people and why it has some merit. Now, that audience number is by people who go and sign on to Rotten Tomatoes voluntarily and rate the film, which is usually tends to be, hardcore fans. So that's not an accurate rating. And I would also tell you that even though all the people you might personally know love the film, I mean, they're similar to you. They have a like mind. If you go through the comments, there are people admitting in the videos that they didn't like Man of Steel, or they had problems with it at least. As I'm going to talk about later this week, Mark Waid, who wrote Superman Birthright, which a large part of Man of Steel is based on, came out over the weekend and said he really ended up hating the film. He came out very strongly against it. I saw a lot of comic book writers saying they didn't like it. I saw a lot of comic writers saying they did like it. And some people said, oh, well, follow the Twitter feeds and you'll only see positive things. That's who you're following. And it's just, and also I have to tell you, a lot of people are privately sending me emails because they don't want to deal with the angry people in the comment section, but they're saying, oh, just so you know, I agree with you. And you'll see that it's a really sore point. I said it was evenly split. A lot of people like it, but a lot of people aren't crazy about it. And I think that, and I said that was my guess, and we'll know next weekend. This will have a definitive answer when we see how much the movie drops. And I'm going to have the strength to admit if I'm wrong, and it does hold up well, and I'll be like, yay, DC Cinematic Universe, I want to see it as much as you do. But I'll ask you, if the movie does drop next weekend, are you going to be able to admit that maybe not everyone's as in love with it as you are? So write down below what you think on that as well, and if you don't like, Man of Steel, I don't know what to advise you on. I mean, it's pretty brutal in here, so I don't know if you want to get in here or not. But let's just all take a breather. We only have to wait a week, and then we'll have a very definitive answer that I think is, that you really can't argue with. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow, and I'll see you later today with more videos, and I'll see you online. Bye.